Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're going to be exploring the mind of a brilliant physicist. But we're not talking about, atoms or particles or any of that stuff.
Oh, it should be good.
Right. We're taking a look at Werner Heisenberg, but through a different lens. You probably know him as the guy who gave us the uncertainty principle, but did you know he was also a deep thinker about, the nature of reality itself?
Yeah, he wasn't just content with, figuring out the laws of physics. He wanted to understand how those laws connect to our everyday experience, to art, even to spirituality.
Exactly. And luckily for us, he left behind this unpublished manuscript. It's called Reality and Its Order, written during World War II. And it's like a window into the mind of a genius wrestling with some of life's biggest questions.
It's amazing, really. You can see how he's trying to make sense of a world that's, been turned upside down by war and by these incredible scientific discoveries that are changing everything.
Yeah, no kidding. So what's the big takeaway from this manuscript? What's the core idea that Heisenberg's trying to get across?
Well, he starts with this fascinating observation that our perception of reality is not static. It changes over time across cultures. What was real to the ancient Greeks, for example, is very different from what we consider real today.
That's a good point. They had, gods and goddesses and all sorts of mythical creatures as part of their everyday reality.
Exactly. Their world was full of magic and mystery. And then, with the rise of Christianity, you see another major shift in how people understand the world.
So our sense of reality isn't fixed. It's constantly evolving, influenced by everything from our scientific discoveries to our cultural beliefs and religious traditions.
Heisenberg was definitely on something there. And this leads into this really interesting analogy. He compares the evolution of science to a child learning language.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does that work?
Well, think about a child learning the word ball. At first, they might use it for anything round, an orange, the moon, whatever. But as they experience more of the world, they start to refine their understanding. They realize that a ball is a specific kind of round object.
So science also starts with these basic observations and then gradually refines its understanding through experimentation and observation.
Exactly. It's like we're constantly testing and revising our picture of reality, just like that child learning to use language more precisely.
That's a great analogy. And I think it really highlights how science is this ongoing process of discovery. We're always learning, always refining our understanding.
Heisenberg would definitely agree with you there. And he was acutely aware of the role language plays in all this. He talks about how language can both help us understand reality and limit our understanding.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
He distinguishes between what he calls static and dynamic representations of reality.
Static versus dynamic. Okay, go on.
A static representation is like a snapshot, a fixed description. A dynamic representation, on the other hand, is more like a seed that grows, leading to new insights and a deeper understanding.
Okay, so could you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine you're describing gravity. A static representation might simply state that objects fall to the ground because of gravity. That's a fixed explanation, right?
Right.
But a dynamic representation might explore why gravity works the way it does, leading to new theories, new discoveries.
Ah, I see. So it's like going beyond just describing what we observe and trying to uncover the underlying principles at work.
Exactly. And Heisenberg believed that no single domain of reality can be fully explained by logic or language alone. He uses this evocative phrase, the abyss. He says there's an abyss separating different domains of reality like physics, biology, even art, that can't be bridged by linear reasoning.
So there's always going to be this element of mystery, something that we can't fully grasp with our rational minds.
Heisenberg seems to think so. And this brings us to another intriguing question. Where does faith fit into all of this?
Oh, now we're getting to the good stuff. How did a physicist like Heisenberg view faith?
Well, he saw faith and science as two distinct paths toward understanding the world. He argued that science starts with objectivity, trying to eliminate the observer as much as possible.
So kind of like trying to create a purely objective picture of the universe, devoid of any human bias.
Right. Whereas religion starts from the subjective, with the creative forces that shape our world and our experiences within it.
It sounds like he's presenting them as complementary ways of knowing, each with its strengths and limitations.
That's right. He didn't see them as being in conflict. In fact, he even suggests that both science and religion begin with a kind of leap of faith.
A leap of faith, even in science.
He argues that in science, it's faith that our observations actually reflect an objective reality out there. In religion, it's faith in a higher power or a spiritual truth beyond our material existence.
I've never thought about it that way. It's interesting to think about the different kinds of faith that underpin our various ways of understanding the world.
And Heisenberg takes this idea even further. He compares the development of human understanding, both in science and religion, to the way a child learns.
Okay, I'm seeing a theme here with the child analogy. How does this one work?
He argues that just as a child starts with simple concepts and gradually builds toward more complex ones, so too has humanity's understanding of the world evolved in stages. We started with basic observations, the movement of stars, the properties of shapes, and gradually moved toward more and more complex understandings.
So it's like our knowledge is built layer upon layer, with each new discovery adding to the complexity of the picture, and that both science and religion are part of this grand process of discovery.
Precisely.
This is also thought-provoking, and I'm eager to see where he takes this idea next.
Well, that brings us to one of Heisenberg's more challenging concepts, the idea of closed systems.
Systems. Okay, lay it on me.
He proposed that while different domains of reality are governed by different laws, think physics, biology, psychology, they all have to work together in a kind of hierarchy. He imagined lower domains, like physics, as being contained within higher ones, like biology.
So it's like a set of Russian nesting dolls, where each doll fits inside a larger one. The laws of physics still apply within the realm of biology, but there's an added layer of complexity, something more than just the sum of the physical parts.
You got it. And this raises a really crucial question that Heisenberg grappled with. Can true objectivity ever be achieved?
Ooh, good question. I'm sensing he might not be so sure.
He started to have his doubts. He argued that we as observers are inherently interwoven into the fabric of reality, and our very act of observation shapes what we perceive.
It's like trying to study a spider web without disturbing the threads, right? Our presence, our very act of looking, changes the thing we're trying to observe. That's a pretty profound insight.
He even went so far as to say that the reality of which we can speak is never reality per se, but a perceived reality.
Wow. So we're always dealing with an interpretation, a human-centered perspective, rather than some pure, unfiltered view of the world.
It seems that way. Heisenberg doesn't offer easy answers, but he encourages us to be aware of this inherent subjectivity, this interplay between observer and observed. And maybe that awareness itself, is a step towards a more complete understanding of reality.
This is already blowing my mind. I'm definitely going to need some time to process all of this.
I hear you. It's a lot to take in. But it's also incredibly exciting, isn't it? To think that we're not just passive observers of the universe, but active participants in shaping reality itself.
Absolutely. And I understand we're about to dive into how these ideas played out in Heisenberg's own scientific journey.
We are. Next time, we'll trace his exploration of different domains of reality, starting with the seemingly straightforward world of classical mechanics, and then venturing into the totally mind-boggling realm of quantum theory.
Can't wait. Last time we were talking about how even in science, like pure objectivity might be, impossible.
Yeah, it's like we're always looking through a lens shaped by our own, experiences, assumptions, all that.
And I'm really curious to see how Heisenberg applied these philosophical ideas to his own scientific work.
Well, he takes us on this journey through the evolution of scientific thought, starting with classical mechanics. For centuries, it seemed to offer this, neat and tidy explanation of the universe. It's the world of Isaac Newton, where objects move in these predictable ways, following these universal laws.
It's like a perfectly choreographed dance, every move predetermined, but then things get a bit messy.
Exactly. The study of electricity and magnetism comes along, and all of a sudden the concept of force needs a serious upgrade.
Okay, so we're not just talking about simple pushes and pulls between objects anymore.
Right. It becomes this invisible force field that exists independently of matter.
So instead of billiard balls colliding, we're now dealing with invisible fields that can act across distances. That's a pretty big leap.
It was a revolution. And Heisenberg points out how this shift forced scientists to rethink, some of their most basic assumptions. The idea of a purely material world where everything could be explained by the interactions of physical objects, it started to crumble.
It's like realizing the puppeteer behind the curtain is something you can't even see or touch directly. And then, of course, things get even wilder with the arrival of, quantum theory.
Quantum theory blows up the neat and tidy picture of classical physics. It challenges our understanding of space, time, even matter itself. It's showing us that at the subatomic level, the universe is far stranger and less predictable than, we ever imagined.
So all those clear-cut laws of motion we thought were unshakable, they no longer apply in the quantum realm.
Right. Heisenberg demonstrated that in the quantum world, uncertainty is fundamental. We can't know both the position and momentum of a particle with perfect accuracy. And even more radically, he proposed that the act of observation itself actually influences the behavior of these particles. It's like the universe is inherently fuzzy, and the more we try to pin it down, the fuzzier it gets.
Okay, that's enough to make your head spin. But I'm starting to see how these discoveries in physics might have influenced Heisenberg's broader philosophical ideas about, the limits of objectivity and the whole observer-observed problem.
Oh, absolutely. And these questions get even more complex when we start talking about organic life.
Yeah.
How do you explain something as intricate and seemingly purposeful as a living organism using, just atomic physics?
Yeah, it seems like a huge leap. Did Heisenberg believe physics could eventually fully explain life?
He struggled with this question. He looked at attempts to bridge the gap between the physical and biological, for instance, the concept of entelechy. It's this mysterious force proposed by Hans Driesch that was supposed to guide the development and purposefulness of living organisms.
So like this invisible hand shaping life from within, something beyond the laws of physics.
Right. But Heisenberg ultimately rejected the idea because it introduced this force that was outside the realm of scientific observation. Too speculative.
So if not entelechy, then what? How did Heisenberg reconcile the apparent purposefulness of life with, the laws of physics?
He was drawn to Niels Bohr's principle of complementarity, which suggests that we need different perspectives, like the physical and the biological, to fully grasp complex phenomena. It's like looking at a sculpture from different angles. Each view gives you, a different understanding of the whole.
So physics might give us one piece of the puzzle, but we need biology, chemistry, maybe even other fields to really understand life.
Exactly. And Heisenberg recognized that atomic physics alone just couldn't explain the origins and the purpose of life. He acknowledged the limitations there.
It seems like Heisenberg is always pushing against the limits of what we know, always questioning our assumptions and reminding us that there's always more to discover.
And that brings us to perhaps the most profound mystery of all, the human soul, consciousness. It's incredible, really. Heisenberg, a physicist, considered consciousness an objective reality.
Yeah.
But it was also deeply subjective.
So he's not saying it's just a byproduct of brain activity, right? He sees consciousness as something real, fundamental.
Yes. He makes this comparison. The interplay of conscious and unconscious processes is like waves on the surface of the ocean. We only see the small part that breaks the surface, right?
Right.
But beneath that, there's this vast unseen movement. He even drew on the work of Carl Gustav Carus, who talked about this general unconscious connected to the forces that shape life itself, and then a partial unconscious, which is more like the shadow side of our individual awareness.
It's fascinating how he connects the vastness of the ocean to the depth of human consciousness. But if consciousness is so elusive, how can we even begin to study it scientifically?
That was a challenge Heisenberg grappled with. He said that observing consciousness directly was like trying to catch a fish with your bare hands. The act of grasping it changes its behavior.
Yeah, how can you study the mind without altering it through observation? It's a real scientific catch-22.
Right. And this is where Heisenberg turns to art. He saw it as another way to explore these deeper realms of human experience.
So last time we were talking about how Heisenberg saw art as this way to explore these deeper realms of human experience, and I'm really curious to hear more about that. It seems like a, surprising leap for a physicist.
Well, he believed art could convey these, profound truths that often escape scientific language.
So while science is all about dissecting and analyzing, art offers this more intuitive and holistic understanding.
You got it. Heisenberg argued that art, through symbols and metaphors, can transmit this spiritual substance directly to our senses, bypassing the need for these complex explanations. Think about how a piece of music can evoke a rush of emotions.
Yeah, or a painting can capture, the essence of a person without a single word.
Exactly. It's like art speaks a language that goes beyond words, tapping into something much deeper.
Heisenberg gives specific examples in the manuscript, right?
He does. He was fascinated by how music, through harmonies, rhythms, these symmetries, could create a sense of order and beauty that, resonated with our deepest intuitions about the universe. He also looked at Goethe's approach to color theory, which explored the emotional and symbolic power of different colors.
Yeah, it's like certain songs or colors just evoke specific feelings or memories. It's like art has this direct line to our subconscious.
And Heisenberg goes so far as to say that art has this cognitive value comparable to scientific language.
So it's not just about aesthetics. Art can actually teach us something about the world, about ourselves.
Heisenberg believed it could. He saw art as this kind of premonition of future developments in human consciousness, a way of exploring new ways of perceiving and experiencing reality.
It's like art is a window into the unknown. But Heisenberg didn't shy away from the more challenging aspects of human nature either, did he? He also explores how our drives and passions, especially in the political realm, shape reality.
Yeah, he had this, sobering view of political power. He wasn't naive about the ways in which power can be abused.
Well, he was writing this during World War II, so it's understandable.
Yeah.
Did he see any way out of this cycle of power and violence?
Heisenberg believed that true progress depends on cultivating what he called the good within ourselves.
It's a powerful reminder that even small acts of goodness can make a difference. But how did Heisenberg envision the future of humanity? Was he optimistic?
Heisenberg recognized that humanity was at a crossroads. He saw the potential for great progress, but also for terrible destruction. He compares this period to the beginning of the Christian era, a time of, huge upheaval and potential transformation.
So a time of both great danger and great opportunity.
Yeah. Heisenberg believed that these domains of reality shaped by our subjective experiences were gaining more and more importance. But he worried that during this transition, what he called sinister demons might emerge.
It's like he foresaw the rise of these ideologies and movements that would exploit those subjective realms.
Heisenberg didn't make specific predictions, but he warned against putting too much faith in, grand political schemes. He believed that real change happens more organically through individual acts of courage, compassion.
So instead of looking to these systems for solutions, he's advocating for a more personal approach.
Yes, but he also saw a crucial role for science in shaping the future. He believed that science, at its best, represented a realm where truth was still valued.
It's like he saw science as this potential antidote to dogma and ideology.
Heisenberg emphasized the importance of pure science, research driven by curiosity rather than, practical applications.
So the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, it sounds like he saw this deep connection between the scientific quest for truth and, well, the human search for meaning.
Absolutely. He even compared the realm of pure science to, like, the inner sanctum of a temple, a sacred space where we can encounter truth.
What a beautiful image. So where does this leave us? What are some key takeaways from our deep dive into Heisenberg's reality and its order?
I think Heisenberg's work reminds us that we're active participants in shaping reality. The choices we make, the beliefs we hold, these all contribute to creating the world we live in.
And that the human capacity for understanding is limitless.
But that the path to true understanding requires, humility, patience, and an open mind.
This has been such an amazing journey. Heisenberg's work continues to challenge and inspire us today, urging us to think deeply about our place in the universe and the choices that we make.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it sparked your own curiosity and inspired you to keep exploring.